Hey guys, GunGoober here. Today we're taking a look at 922R and how it applies to the B&T APC9k. For a full explanation of 922R, check out my first 922R explained video where we cover the AK pattern rifles. Here's the TLDR version. 922R is a regulation that controls the number of foreign parts you're allowed to have on your rifle, and it limits you to 10 foreign imported parts. Now, as far as I know, no one has ever been charged solely for a 922R violation. However, I'm making this video just to provide you with information so you can make the best personal decision for your own situation. However, one note I will make, the parts to be 922R compliant are usually much cheaper than hiring a lawyer, even for just the initial consultation. Alright, let's dive into the APC9k and see which parts the ATF considers for 922R compliance. The ATF says there are 13 parts on the APC9k that count for 922R, but here's the first confusing bit. The ATF's example doesn't have a threaded barrel, while my example does. Their example has a fixed barrel with a tri-lug milled onto it. Mine has a threaded barrel with a muzzle device. So in my case, and if you have this same model, you have 14 parts that count for 922R most likely. So even the information that you can get directly from the ATF may not be directly applicable, and it just adds the confusion around 922R in a way that you wouldn't think there would be. Even more confusing is figuring out where each part of the APC9 is manufactured from the factory. The receiver and the barrel are marked, but the markings are contradictory. This side of the receiver says Thurn, Switzerland. You can barely make it out if it'll focus. However, under this vertical grip, which I'll take off, so if it'll focus, you can make out just barely, it says B&T USA, Tampa, Florida on the bottom of the receiver. So which is it? Does B&T manufacture these parts in the US, or does it just finish them here? Does that count if they just finish them here? The serial number on the barrel and the receiver have a US prefix. Does that mean it was made here, or does it mean that B&T just marks their intended exports with a US in the front of their serial number before they make them in Switzerland? Who knows? You would think that you would be able to reach out to B&T for clarification, but as you can see from their response, they basically blew me off. And this is the same kind of attitude that I've received from several other manufacturers as well. Because as I explained in my first 922R explained video, the manufacturers of these imported firearms rely on the mystique that is associated with the foreign country that these items are produced in, and therefore it's not in their interest to publicly disclose exactly which parts are made here in the United States or which parts are made, in this case, in Switzerland. For something that could land you in federal prison for 10 years and strip away your gun rights for forever, you'd think that they would provide more clear answers, but unfortunately, this is all we have to work with. The only sure way to be compliant with 922R is to just assume that all 14 parts, as they come from the factory, are not manufactured in the United States and replace 4 of them with US-made parts. So which parts would we want to replace on a B&T APC? The easiest parts to swap are the trigger assembly, pistol grip, and muzzle device. The trigger assembly counts as 3 parts: the trigger, disconnector, and hammer. The trigger is almost a standard AR-15 type trigger, although some might require slight modification. Elfman triggers are great drop-in replacements, but if you have a metal lower, you just need to let them know in the order notes, and they'll modify it for you so that it'll work in a metal APC lower. The pistol grip works with standard AR-15 pistol grips, and you can even use these ones with the swept up back here. They have that same exact angulature from the AR-15, so it'll match up perfectly. Sometimes when you have AR-15 pistol grips on other platforms, they have like a weird shelf here or something that requires you to cut this off or something. And the last easy thing to replace is the muzzle device. This is threaded 1/2 by 28, and there are many US manufacturers that make tri-lug devices or some other kind of muzzle device, like a compensator or flash hider for 9mm. One caveat for the muzzle device is that I'm not sure, and it doesn't make clear anywhere, what happens when you add a suppressor. So when I put this suppressor on, does that mean the suppressor is now the muzzle device, or is it still the tri-lug device that's underneath? Ultimately, it's not that big a deal because basically every single suppressor in the United States was manufactured here in the United States because it's such a headache to import suppressors. B&T makes all of their suppressors in the United States, and so does pretty much every other company selling suppressors. But it would be interesting to know, when you QD on a suppressor, does that count as the muzzle device? Do you have to direct thread it on? You know, what's the deal? The other parts that are possible to be replaced would be like the stock. However, you probably want to use a B&T stock since they make the coolest ones for the APC firearms, but there are actually some US-made choices available, so that is one option. Also, you could swap out the magazine for a US-made one, but B&T mags are the preferred choice usually, especially because one comes with the gun. You're going to want to at least be able to use that. There are US-made magazines like this KCI magazine here, which is also more affordable, and I believe they are made in the US. KCI originally came from Korea, so they say on their website that they manufacture and design stuff in Korea and the United States. So I'm not sure exactly where these are made. It doesn't say on them, of course, in, true manufacturing fashion. It doesn't say where it's from. But this is possibly one option that you could go with to get yourself down to the 10 required parts. I would recommend against using the magazine for 922R compliance, just because you never know if you insert the wrong magazine. You don't want to get in trouble randomly for something silly like that. My recommendation to be 922R compliant with minimal hassle is to replace the trigger assembly, because that counts as 3 parts, and swap either the pistol grip or the muzzle device to count as the 4th part. The rest of the parts are either unavailable as US made, or they would be too difficult to swap to be worth your time. So again, the trigger, pistol grip, or muzzle device, that's what I would go with. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.